My name is Sophie and I live in Vancouver, a city that always feels like it's holding its breath before the next rainstorm. I am 24 years old, and my days usually begin before the sun makes its way over the North Shore Mountains, often still feeling heavy from the previous day's grind. I work as a barista at a busy coffee shop downtown, a job that requires a lot of standing, a lot of smiling, and a lot of caffeine to fuel through the shifts. My apartment is small, a cozy but cramped space on the edge of the city, and every morning I look at the gray sky and try to imagine a different future, one where I am not counting every penny or worrying about the rising cost of everything. My biggest dream right now is to save enough money to go back to school for graphic design, to finally pursue something creative that truly speaks to my soul, but tuition feels like a mountain I am trying to climb with just my bare hands. The truth is, I often feel like I am standing still while the world rushes past me, and there is this constant whisper in the back of my mind, a nagging doubt that tells me I might not be good enough, that I might never escape this cycle of just barely making it. The pressure isn't just from myself. My younger brother is in high school, and I want to be a good example for him, to show him that hard work pays off, even when it feels like it doesn't. My parents, though loving, often remind me how expensive Vancouver is, subtly hinting that maybe I should consider a more stable path, one that doesn't involve chasing dreams that feel so far away. Every month, after rent and bills, there is so little left over, and I try to squirrel away every spare dollar, but it feels like chipping away at a granite wall. One day, my car, an old beat-up sedan that had seen better days, decided it had given all it could. The transmission failed, and the repair bill was astronomical, far more than the car was worth. Just like that, my small savings, the little bit I had managed to gather for my future schooling, vanished in a puff of smoke. Suddenly, I was walking everywhere, enduring the frequent Vancouver rain, and my daily commute became an hour-long trek each way. The physical exhaustion was one thing, but the emotional drain was worse, a heavy cloak of defeat settling over me. That internal nemesis, the one that whispers doubt, grew louder and louder. It started telling me I was foolish to even dream, that I should just accept my lot in life, that I wasn't strong enough to break free. It felt like all my efforts were just leading me back to the same starting line, over and over again. I remember one particularly dreary Tuesday. The rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and red. My shift had been endless, a never-ending stream of demanding customers and steaming espresso machines. My feet ached, my head pounded, and my spirit felt as waterlogged as my shoes. I had just received a notice about a rent increase for my apartment, a small but significant jump that felt like a final blow. I stood at a bus stop, shivering, the wind whipping through my thin jacket, watching buses pass by, each one seemingly too full or going in the wrong direction for my current mood. I just wanted to be home, to curl up under my blanket and pretend the world outside didn't exist. As I huddled deeper into myself, trying to shield my face from the pelting rain, I noticed a figure hunched in the doorway of a closed storefront across the street. It was an older man, his clothes soaked through, a makeshift cardboard sign beside him. He looked utterly miserable, his face etched with a kind of weariness that went beyond just the cold. For a moment, I just stared, my own problems feeling so vast, yet seeing him, I felt a pang of something deeper, a shared vulnerability in the face of the storm. I closed my eyes for a second, feeling the familiar sting of tears, thinking that this was it, this was my lowest point. My dream of school felt like a cruel joke, my savings were gone, and now even my small haven of an apartment was becoming harder to afford. I felt like giving up, truly giving up on everything. Then something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the cold or the sheer despair, but I realized that even at my absolute lowest, I still had a roof over my head tonight, a warm meal if I chose, and the ability to walk away from this street. He didn't. Without really thinking, I opened my backpack and pulled out my bright yellow umbrella, the one I usually kept for extra protection against Vancouver's relentless downpours. It was a sturdy umbrella, big enough for two. I crossed the street, feeling a surge of something that wasn't exactly courage, but a deep, quiet resolve. He looked up as I approached, his eyes wary but also holding a flicker of surprise. "Excuse me," I said, my voice a little shaky from the cold and my own emotions. "Would you like to share my umbrella? You look freezing." He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, then at the bright yellow dome I held out. I knelt down beside him, carefully opening the umbrella and positioning it to shield us both. "My name is Sophie," I offered, trying to smile despite the chill. I don't have much, but I can share this. Slowly, a tiny crack appeared in his hardened exterior. He mumbled, "Arthur, thank you, Sophie." We sat there for a while, silent, just listening to the rain drumming on the fabric above us. Eventually, I asked him if he was hungry, and he admitted he hadn't eaten properly in days. I pulled out the last $5 bill from my wallet, which I had been saving for an emergency coffee tomorrow morning, and handed it to him, directing him to a cheap but warm diner a few blocks away. The conversation flowed, hesitant at first, then gaining strength. He told me he used to work in a warehouse, that he had lost his job and then his home after a series of unlucky events, and that he had been trying to get back on his feet for months. He spoke with a quiet dignity, not asking for pity, just sharing his story. Listening to him, really listening, something warm spread through my chest, pushing back against the cold dread I had felt. Suddenly, my own problems, though still present, didn't feel quite so all-consuming. I remembered my father, who owned a small but thriving storage warehouse on the outskirts of the city. He was always looking for reliable people, especially those who weren't afraid of hard work. The idea sparked in my mind like a tiny, insistent flame. It felt like a crazy leap, a huge risk, but I knew I had to try. The next day, still reeling from the events of the previous evening, I found Arthur exactly where I had left him. I approached him, heart pounding, and asked if he would be open to a job. He looked at me, a flicker of hope mixed with disbelief in his eyes. I explained about my father's warehouse, a place where people stored everything from furniture to antique cars, and how they always needed help loading, unloading, and organizing. I knew my father, though gruff, had a good heart. Arthur was hesitant, explaining that he didn't have suitable clothes or even a way to clean up for an interview. "Don't worry about that," I said, a newfound determination coursing through me. "I'll help you. Just meet me here tomorrow morning early." I spent that evening frantically searching through my father's old clothes, finding a clean, slightly oversized work shirt and a pair of sturdy jeans. I even managed to find an old, unused toothbrush and a small bottle of shampoo. The next morning, Arthur was there, waiting, looking a little more hopeful. We walked to a nearby community center that offered showers, and then I took him to a small cafe for a quick, warm breakfast, going over potential interview questions. I saw him transform before my eyes, not just physically, but emotionally. He stood taller, his shoulders less hunched. When we finally arrived at the warehouse, my father, a man of few words, looked Arthur up and down. I explained the situation simply, focusing on Arthur's work history and his desire to turn his life around. My father agreed to a trial, a week of work to see how he fit in. It was a terrifying week for both Arthur and me. I worried constantly, but Arthur, despite his initial struggles to readjust, proved himself. He was diligent, careful, and deeply grateful. He earned his spot. Arthur's new normal wasn't just about having a job, it was about having a purpose, a sense of belonging again. He eventually found a small room to rent, and I saw him sometimes, walking with a lighter step, a small wave and a genuine smile as he passed my coffee shop on his way to work. And my new normal. That rainy day, that shared umbrella, it changed everything for me too. The constant nagging doubt had quieted down. I realized that even when I felt like I had nothing left to give, a simple act of kindness could spark a ripple effect I couldn't have imagined. Helping Arthur reminded me of my own strength, my own resilience, and the belief that even the smallest gesture can make a profound difference. I started volunteering at a local shelter on my days off, helping people prepare resumes and offering guidance. My dream of going back to school for graphic design still felt far away financially, but it no longer felt impossible. I knew that even if I had to take one class at a time or save for years, I would get there. The internal nemesis of doubt had been replaced by a quiet, steady resolve. A few months later, I was walking home after a particularly grueling shift, feeling tired but content. The rain, of course, had started again, and I pulled my trusty yellow umbrella from my bag. As I opened it, I heard a voice call my name. It was Arthur. He was holding a small, carefully wrapped package. "Sophie," he said, his eyes shining. "I just wanted to thank you for everything." Inside the package was a brand new, vibrant yellow raincoat, perfectly sized for me. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like a full circle, a quiet twist of fate that proved to me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that sometimes the light you try to give to someone else ends up illuminating your own path, guiding you through the storm towards a brighter tomorrow.